I am so happy to welcome back to my channel two beautiful souls I had the privilege of interviewing before. They have become friends, colleagues, and co-creators in the healing space. Myriam Wiedemann is a galactic astrologer, a channeler, a healer, a very powerful geomancer, which she will explain what that means throughout this interview. And Amy Elizabeth, who you know, I've interviewed her before as well, is a powerful medical and energy intuitive who serves as a beautiful angelic divine channel, allowing coherent field of healing consciousness to flow through her in the most beautiful and supportive way. We met for the first time in person in Egypt in November last year. And actually, I just got goosebumps saying that. That's so exciting to say that again. It was so magical and it felt mysterious and it was powerful on so many levels. And Egypt has this way of unlocking something ancient inside you. And this conversation, we're going to explore how we transform and what can happen when you walk that land and sail on that Nile with your eyes open and your heart open. We speak about our activations, powerful energetic shifts, intuitive insights that seem to arrive out of nowhere, and the tears that came as the layers were released. So we also share our sense of past life connections, galactic and otherwise, and the profound feeling of homecoming that arose within us in places we'd never actually been before in this lifetime. I hope you enjoy this conversation. We might end up doing two parts because there is so much to discuss. Welcome to the show, Amy and Myriam.
Hello,
Thank
thank
you, Peggy.
Well, so many people have asked me when I got back was, why Egypt? Why did you want to go to Egypt? So I feel like I need to start with that question. What was the deeper call for you personally? Myriam, do you want to begin with your journey from the age of 9?
Sure, yes, it is a long, it has been a long time in the making, so to say. It was in 1980 when I visited Tutankhamun World Tour exhibition in Munich with my parents, and I remember, I still remember, I saw the golden death mask, and I decided right there in front of this mask, I want to become an Egyptologist. And I read everything that the local library had on Egypt. I became obsessed, and I think many, many children have the same experience. And a couple of years later, then I saw an article by Erich von Däniken, who passed away recently, the how is he called? The ancient aliens guy. And suddenly there were two streams at the same time, ancient Egypt and extraterrestrial life. And they felt connected in ways I couldn't explain. And so I always wanted to go to Egypt, and it aligned only 44 years later. So and I
Yes.
never understood, I understand now why I had to wait, because I had to arrive with a broader, with a broader knowledge and a broader picture of Egypt. And so Egyptology and the pre-astronautics were the beginning. Then astronomy and astrology came into my field of awareness. And last but not least, geomancy. And that is when when all the pieces came together and I was ready to go. So,
I love that.
and yeah, that is my long story.
I absolutely love that. I have a very similar story about this obsession with Egypt as a young person. I'm sure I did two projects on it. And back in the day, searching the encyclopedias and finding the information and just being mesmerized by the whole concept of these beautiful temples and the pyramids. Amy, your story is a little bit different. Do you want to share? Because it's quite incredible. I think the audience will be.
Yes, so I never had that initial pull or particular interest in Egypt until I was reading the Emerald Tablets, the translation by M. Doreel, on a flight back from Mount Shasta just a couple of years ago. And the moment I finished reading the book, literally on the last word, my whole body started zinging with energy. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? And I turned to the front of the book and it said, read, believe or not, but read. And the vibration therein will awaken a response in your soul. So I was shaking and I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? And at the airport, I phoned my friend and I was like, I've just finished reading this book and now I have this huge pull that I need to go to Egypt. And then everything has been a bit like a treasure hunt, because since then I've been seeing certain numbers. So if I just tell you, it was a couple of weeks ago, I was in my kitchen and I remembered this dream I had when I was last in Egypt. And it was Thoth, and he opened his hand and he held out these red crystals to me. And I had this thought and I was like, oh, and I tried looking up some information to see if that meant anything, and I couldn't find anything. And I received this thought of watch Gaia. So I logged into my Gaia account, and there on the home screen was an episode of Thoth, the Atlantean master. So I started watching this, and it was talking about 137. And I was like, I keep seeing 137. What does this mean? And it said it's to do with a mathematical code to do with the second pyramid and sacred geometry and space-time. And I was like, space-time? I keep being told about, I'm helping people with their timelines. And I'd recently had a session with Lisa Wetzel, and she kept saying, you're a time shifter, you're a time shifter, a time traveler. And so for me, I'm trying to figure out what it all means. So that was my initial pull to Egypt, if that makes any sense. It was just this activation and then this pull in my soul that I have to go.
Yeah, so incredible. And I know you went last in 2024, and you mentioned it, and both Myriam and Amy had said that they were going in November, and I just said, okay, that's it, I'm going. I have to go as well. So it was just this pull of, again, yeah, I guess just needing to connect for some reason. It feels very, it almost feels subconscious, like the pull for me, it felt very subconscious, like I just had to go. Just trying to explain it's hard to translate for some people. Before you went, like, what were you sort of hoping that would happen? I guess for me, I was just so excited to meet you in person and give you hugs. Like, I was so excited. I couldn't believe that I was going to meet you in person after all this time on Zoom from the other side of the world. I really just had no understanding of of what could happen. I really didn't. But I think that you both had expectations of what could happen. Myriam, do you want to begin?
Yeah, I really hoped I would remember because the sacred sites there and the temples, the pyramids, I hope that they would bring back memories from past lives there, to be honest, from Atlantean times too, because I work with galactic astrology and geomancy, and I hope that through that memory I would receive guidance for my next evolutionary step, how to bring those two fields together. And I also wanted a kind of a template. How did our ancient ancestors actually work with the cosmic energies, and what were the methods they used, and how would they bring together the sky and the earth in the sacred sites? That's what I went to understand and hopefully retrieve.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And you went on a specific tour that was guided for spiritual evolution, I suppose.
Yes, both spiritually and I suppose also the woo people. I
Yeah.
remember sitting on the bus and chatting away all kinds of theories out there. Mhm.
And Amy, you also signed up for a tour, a guided tour that had a very strong spiritual pull. So you had, I guess, signing up for a spiritual tour, you have these expectations that things might happen spiritually. And I was sort of going on the back of both of your understanding of what this land meant and these temples. And so I was like, maybe I'll get some activations. And we're going to talk about that later. Amy, share your reason for what you were hoping was going to happen on this second time on this
Well,
tour.
so if I just quickly go back to the first time I went, I didn't know what to expect and turned up, met my friend at the airport. We had no plan, nowhere to stay. So we were hot-footing it around Egypt, and we'd gone at the end of June. There were no tourists there, so all the sites were empty. And we were lucky enough that, you know, the gardener had a bunch of keys and he'd go and open some buildings, and we got to see all these sites where when I went back with my tour, these sites were packed and you wouldn't have had that kind of service. So we even had, so this was in 2024, there was a security guard who, it was specifically Karnak, he followed us round and he was having me do certain things and he was breathing on me and doing all these weird things. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? Is he making fun of me? But they were activations. So that happened. And then I think that was so that my energy could adjust before I then went back in 2025 with which, so the group that went, we were all from the same oversoul. Everyone was very similar frequencies. So I'm not sure what I was expecting with that group, because a lot of it had happened prior. So when some of them were receiving these big activations at sites, I was like, oh, it's already happened. I'm not feeling the energy in the same way that I had previously. But I know there was a lot of stuff happening between us as well. Yeah, we were kind of walking these sites as a group entity, which was very powerful in itself.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think that for me, you know, knowing that these activations were possible being on the land and Myriam, really, you really explained what geomancy was to me and how powerful the land was. Do you want to explain to our listeners a little bit about what is special about Egyptian land?
So from the geomancy perspective that I have been trained in, Egypt is the logical continuation of Atlantean knowledge and wisdom, but also everything that came with the downfall of Atlantis. So when we understood in Atlantean times that there was no going back and the inevitable would happen, we decided to at least manage the downfall a bit and prepare for it as we were able to. And I think that South America, Egypt, and also India have our memory storages or memory storages of the Atlantean knowledge. So not only the temples, and we will talk about it because it is multi-layered, but especially I think the pyramids are storage facilities and shutdown activation modalities for the land. And that is what I wanted to understand. We know that the temples all over the world and the sacred sites are specifically built on certain spots on the earth which hold a lot of energy. But they are also built because they have connections to the fixed stars and the planets, and they are infused or imbued with this energy and therefore even more enhanced. I saw this when I went to Bosnia the year before. That's when the whole pyramid thing started for me, because we have pyramids in Bosnia. There are many theories around it, and you can look it up if you want. It is definitely worth a visit after Egypt, Peggy and Amy. So yeah, and there I understood that the pyramids are aligned with the Pleiades. And then I thought, okay, we have so much understanding of the pyramids in Egypt and how they are aligned with Orion, but also Sirius and the North Star and so on. And I want to understand more about this. I want to understand how this was done.
Yeah, Incredible. I just visited in Koh Samui, the big Buddha, and I just got to the foot of this statue and I just started crying. And it was a really, really powerful, energetic pulse that went through my body in this overwhelm of tears. So it was similar to Egypt. But before, I guess we were speaking about the energy of Egypt, and for you, which places had the strongest frequency? Like, what were some of the strongest frequencies on the end of that question? You mentioned the pyramids. Was that for you, Myriam?
No, it was actually something else I would
Ah,
have expected at
wow.
all. Um, I don't know, Amy, did you visit the quarries in Aswan?
I don't think so. I went over to
Mhm.
the island, but I don't believe I went to the quarries.
So this was very unexpected. There are beautiful granite quarries in Aswan where they have this beautiful rose granite, of which most of the obelisks are made worldwide, by the way. And we went there around noon, and we wanted to visit the broken obelisk that is still on the ground. And this is where my most powerful experience happened, because when I was standing next to this 42 meters long, over 1,000 tons of solid granite piece of rock still attached to the ground, where it cracked 3,000 years ago, and that's why they left it there. I walked to the edge of this carved trench, and I was looking at the precision of the cuts, and I was thinking, that is not the technology we know about. And then time stopped for me, and I'm glad I went there with another woman from the tour, because otherwise I would have thought, well, something has shifted. But we both experienced that everyone vanished in the quarry. The tour group, the other visitors, the guards, no one was there, just gone. And we were there in complete silence in the midday sun, and we fell out of linear time completely. I cannot describe it otherwise. Minutes or hours passed, we didn't know. We just knew it happened. And I think it was because of the obelisk that, even unfinished, still was emanating a frequency that created this temporal field. And we then explored it further afterwards, and we understood that we were experiencing our own personal soul time rather than the collective measurable time, which was an extraordinary experience. And this is something that also needs to be understood, and we will open up the memories around this more and more, because it is that we have forgotten so much about this ancient technology and what it can do. And this is something so precious to unlock and make it accessible for our own healing journey, and not only our personal but collective. It is a collective remembrance that needs to happen, and that happens now. And I think that's why so many people go to Egypt now.
Mm, yeah. I wonder, when I walked into the temple at Abu Simbel, which is the temple with this incredible frequency, people are just taking photographs, and some people are there with their Instagrammable sort of outfits and everything. But there are people that walk around and you can see that they can feel the energy. Um, and I know there's some guards in these places, like there was a particular guard who could see, just like your experience, Amy, the one that just they can see, they've been doing it for years. They see us as people who sense energy. And this guy just waved me over and just took me in this corner. And it just looked like a hole in the wall in this temple. And I couldn't stop crying, and my forehead was vibrating, and I was so emotional. And he said, "Do you want me to take a picture?" And I'm just sitting there crying. The energy was palpable. And then I walked around that temple, and the emotions were just flowing out of me. And I had no idea why, but it felt like a deep remembering, to be honest. And there were moments when I walk in, even though it was packed, and maybe now as you explain this story, this is what happened to me. I look around and there is no one in there. It's just me in
Mm,
one of the chambers, in one of the rooms rather, and I'm just crying, having this moment of this deep remembrance. And I'm thinking, why are there no other people in this room? And then I went into
mm,
another one and there are four or five, and then I turn around and there's nobody there. So I was free to really just let the floodgates come out. So, but the Sphinx was also very powerful. And the pyramids, we had this moment on the bus as we were leaving Myriam, and we were waiting, and this shot of energy came through the bus, and we both felt it. It was very powerful, sort of surge of like a vortex up through the spine. And we both sort of stared at each other and went, wow, did you feel that? So it was incredible. And Amy, you felt the same sort of sensation at the pyramids, or
Yeah, so
similar?
I I don't get the emotional hits that you guys get. For me, it's literally just the feelings in my body. So when I was at the Sphinx, the energy was so intense. So we were standing between the paws and my body was vibrating. And I felt so nauseous with the intensity of the energy that was there. And then it's funny what you were saying about the power of the granite, because in front of the kind of between the paws of the Sphinx, there's a granite stand. It used to have a statue on. So when I was touching that, I could feel, if I had closed my eyes, I could feel my energy body wobbling like a jellyfish. And I experienced the same thing at Isis Temple. There was
Mm.
the granite stand which had the statue of the god on, and touching that, I could feel my whole energy wibbly wobbling.
Wow.
It was intense. But with the pyramids, when I went into the king's chamber, so the Great Pyramid, I felt a stabbing pain in my heart. And then there was the second pyramid. When I went into that one, I felt a stabbing pain in my third eye. So I either see these as like soul fractals coming back or activations happening. Something's happening. I just don't always know what it is. But yeah, I
Mm.
experience it on that level.
Yes, I think for me, it felt like parts of my heart, this frequency from my ancient timeline as an Egyptian, I guess what's been channeled for me is a priestess, and just this, perhaps the pain that I felt, you know, back in the day. I guess it's just parts of my, or the remembering and just the sadness that I feel for missing my ancient timelines. The other thing that was really powerful for me, and you speak about the granite, because that granite, not it wasn't, it feels like the granite holds a particular frequency, and it's not necessarily the land. And when we walk, and now my hands are actually vibrating when I think about this, because when we went to the Grand Egyptian Museum, this incredible piece of architecture that is, it's just incredible. You have to go and you have to spend at least 2 days there. Myriam and I were able to go together. We felt the vibration from so many granite pieces, from whether it was obelisks or some pieces of we weren't even sure what they were. We just felt this, this, this surge of energy. And sometimes they were just, it looked like just a square, like a healing chamber or something, just so, just like a rectangle. And we were standing there and we both felt the energy staring at each other. And we both had these downloads of what they actually were, these galactic portal devices. And you could see some of the kids walking around and people were just taking photographs. But then you would see this kid and he would stand and he would just, we both turned to each other saying, he knows, he feels the energy. So we could see children as they were experiencing the energy as we were. It was quite moving. Did you want to add
it was,
anything to that? Yeah.
yeah, it was. And we looked at each other and we said, he knows.
That happens
Um,
so many times. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's the granite alone. Maybe it is, maybe the site where the stone was taken from has a lot of like earth energy anyways.
Mm,
But as soon as we work with the material there, so we can take some of the energy with it. Then there is definitely the technology, how the stone was carved. And we know it was not carved with our like traditional materials and tools. There was frequency technology used for building the temples, for building the pyramids, for creating those beautiful statues and monuments. And then I think there is also a lot of white magic and also dark magic at hand, and it is still part of the artifact itself. So I think it is again multi-layered, and we are at the beginning of understanding what it really means, because I also believe that most of those sites were shut down energetically and intentionally after the downfall of Atlantis, and then later on when the darker aspects of Atlantis were explored more in Egypt, because we mustn't forget that. And the energy is still palpable. We can feel it. Like Amy, you said, you can feel it very strongly as a pain in your body, or as tears coming up, or a remembrance coming back to us. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, as soon as those powerful sites are reactivated, everything is going to shift.
So did you feel it most in the heart, the crown, or the gut? How did you feel that, Amy, mostly these activations, this?
Well, what was funny was I remember one day we were going to visit, oh, I can't remember. It was to do with the sacral. It must have been Philae Temple. And several people had stomachache. And then after we'd visited Philae Temple, everyone was fine. And then, I remember saying, oh, I wonder if it's related because this is the sacral chakra. So it's like energetically clearing stuff, visiting the temple that's related to that chakra. So I would feel things in all different parts of my body in relation to what the temple represents and the association with the chakra.
So maybe perhaps you can explain to the audience what is the association between the different temples in the chakra system, because you gave me this beautiful map and it really helped me understand what I was experiencing in each of the temple. Because I didn't go on a spiritual tour. I just went on a regular tour, and I made it spiritual myself. I just went off and cried and meditated, and my third eye was buzzing, and the people in my tour group were like, where is she going? Why is she crying? Anyway, Amy, do you want to explain the chakra system and the association with different temples?
So I was given some images in our group chat before this tour of Egypt, and there are a couple of them. One with the feet pointing towards, they call it Upper Egypt, but that's the kind of middle part of towards Africa, and then the head towards the pyramids along the Nile, and then each of the chakras is ascending up the body along the Nile towards the pyramids. And I don't know if this also relates to the story of collecting the 14 parts. So with the story, I'm probably not the best person to tell it, but Isis collecting up the 14 parts of Osiris. When you do the pilgrimage of the temples, as you visit each one, you receive a piece of yourself back. And then for my group, our tour, the 14th temple was us, after we'd collected all these pieces and we had our final ceremony in the Great Pyramid, bringing all those pieces of remembrance or soul fractals or whatever, pieces of ourselves back to us. We then walk away whole, carrying this frequency within us, helping activate other people. So I don't know too much about the chakras and the history and how it relates. I was just given those pictures. Perhaps Myriam more, I don't know.
Well, I think the chakra system is older than we know, and well, it is connected to the Indian healing system, but it goes beyond. The Chinese have it too. And I think the energy vortices in our bodies are something that is universal for human beings, maybe even beyond. I don't know. So it makes absolute sense what you told us, Amy, because my memories came back on firstly through a physical experience, and that happened in Abu Simbel for me, because I remembered I walked the path between the two temples like many times before. So there was a physical remembrance. It makes sense that it is connected to the root chakra, obviously. Is that correct? Abu Simbel, is it connected
Yeah,
to the root chakra? Yeah.
yeah.
So
Mm.
walking there and remembering was part of it. And then in the Great Pyramid in the King's Chamber, when I touched the sarcophagus, I had the clear image of the North Star in my inner vision. And shortly after that, the guide told us about two shafts that go out of the King's Chamber and connect to the outside of the pyramid. And one is connected to Sirius, and one is connected to the North Star. I was
Wow.
not aware of that, of the North Star, and it clearly showed itself just moments before he talked about it. So again, a huge activation. And it is more connected to the wholeness of it all. How are we aligned
Mm.
with the cosmic forces, or at least I am. And
Mm.
so I believe, yes, it can be a kind of ritual to move along the Nile and reconnect with our chakra system to the chakra system of the earth, because there is a chakra system of the earth as well.
Mm.
I
It
could
was
talk about this for ages and leave it
Oh, well,
at that.
we'll have to. It's so fascinating. And I had a real stirring in my solar plexus, and that's your power center. And I felt like this real rumbling. And when we got back to our Airbnb, I said to Miriam, there is something coming up here. And I had this, we were just sitting on this rooftop in crazy Cairo with all the honking. And Miriam helped me release this Kundalini energy. It was just this last of the Kundalini rising through my body. It was so powerful and incredible. So it really, it started with the stirring of standing on those lands in around Giza, and then got more activated as we walked through the gem. And then it was just this whoosh of this incredible energy clearing through my chakra system. So it was, if you want a Kundalini experience, Egypt is your place.
Well, you
Um,
wouldn't expect that, would
no,
you?
you wouldn't. No, no. I guess it's the ancient priestess in me
And
who
it
needed
is true.
to connect to this land in order to reconnect with her, yes, her Kundalini energy. And so I think there are some sites that activated something specific in you as well, Amy. Is that right? The Saqqara. Did you had a pretty incredible experience there?
Yeah, it was interesting because I remember looking, so we went into the pyramid and I remember looking down the shaft that was in there, and there's this stone, looks like a bed at the bottom. And it was like I looked over and then I had this stabbing pain. I was like, oh, what is that? And Karen, who was leading the trip, she was right there. And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I experiencing right now? And she can see everything that's happening. She's like, oh, I see you. So I was clearing a past life. So there was a soul that was supposed to come in, I'd been speaking to, but I had some ectopic pregnancy and then had to have surgery, all this stuff. So I was feeling that clearing in my body. And then there was another part of me. I think this was maybe um,
Dendara?
Dendara. Dendara. Yeah. So I felt. So we did a kind of meditation before going into that our vibration had risen and we were open. And as soon as I walked in, I felt this in my heart space. And again, my friend was there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what was that?" And she said, "Oh, I just saw like this Pleiadian version of you just integrating back in." So I thought that was wild.
It's incredible. So for you, Dendara was pretty special as well, Miriam, as a galactic astrologer.
Yes. Uh, I think every astrologer who goes to Egypt wants to see Dendera, because there is a beautiful zodiac in one piece at the ceiling in one of the chambers. And Dendera is also special because you can climb on the roof. There is still a roof top, and so Dendera had a lot of that made me really emotional, going to Dendera and seeing the goddess Nut, the celestial mother, and those depiction of this beautiful goddess who rests her hands in the east and her feet in the west, and holds the whole sky in her belly. And this was something I really wanted to see because this is on one hand the most complete astronomical ceiling in Egypt, perhaps in the entire ancient world, as far as we know. And we have a lot of ancient astrology knowledge encoded in these illustrations. And that is why when I went there and I looked at Nut and I looked at the zodiac, I knew, okay, this is something that needs to be understood more closely and translated into into our modern view of astrology. And presently, I'm really rethinking the whole thing. How can we integrate the galactic knowledge more into our zodiac and also into our charts? So there is so much about it, and we understand more and more that our ancient colleagues, our ancient astrology colleagues, and because they were not only astrologers, they were astronomers too. They understood so much more than we do, and we have again to remember and recollect the pieces and bring it back to the big puzzle we are playing with anyways.
That's so incredible. So just witnessing that stuff, I mean, there's and my own personal experience of my Kundalini rising and my solar plexus really, really activating and just trying to step into that power that I felt like, for me, it felt like I had reactivated these healing abilities that I had forgotten about, these ancient healing abilities that I had done thousands and thousands of years ago. So is really powerful for me. And I guess I wonder for you, how did it change for you? I mean, I know there are so many places where my third eye just buzzed, and I knew that it was like an opening. It was kind of like an opening. And when I came back from Egypt, the sessions that I had with clients, the information was coming in so fast. So it really truly felt like I had opened up my third eye, particularly into yeah. And my hands were buzzing a lot and my feet were buzzing so much so. So yeah, it really shifted for me. These sites did energetic activations for me for sure. What about who would like to share it? Myriam, did you want to explain how your dreams and visions, or how did it change you in terms of your abilities?
Hmm. For me, my sessions changed as well. Yeah, for sure. And I started from I started to look at my work from a totally different point of view,
Wow.
because more and more, I said in the beginning, I wanted to understand in Egypt how galactic astrology and geomancy can come together. And that is what I started to understand in Egypt. And like you, like both of you, I want to go back and do more research. And the mission for this time, if you will, was accomplished in ways I wouldn't have expected, because
Mm.
I didn't get an answer per se, but more questions opened up. And that is something I like, because I am not someone who loves to be in the status quo. I really want to move on. And the quest continues, like with Amy and you, Peggy.
It's like they're like initiation chambers, these places, you know. It felt like I was being reinitiated. Did you have that same experience, Amy?
So when I went to one of the temples, and I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Dendara, but I remember walking through this room, into this room, and my hands lit up. They just lit up. And then I could feel the energy around my hands just stretching. And I was kind of standing there like this. Oh my gosh, what's going on with my hands? And then I looked over at my friend, and she had this same look on her face as she was experiencing something. And she was like, I feel like a 10-year-old girl. Um, so, but it only happened in that particular room. There were lots of different rooms at this temple. And then the statue of Sekhmet was
Oh,
the
oh,
one of the most activating things. So in 2024, when I went, one of my friends was like, "Oh, you've got to see if you can, find this." And yeah, so when we found the statue, I remember stepping over the barrier and putting my hand on it. And the guards were like, okay, 10 minutes. And then they came over and they were placing our hands on it to do activations and then pulling the energy onto us. And I remember I put my hand on and I saw this kind of teal light rise up in my mind's eye. And then it turned to this like really vibrant cherry red and moved across, and everything was like and you just feel crazy energy and downloads coming in. So I knew there was some initiation and activation happening with this one. And I remember everyone in the group in 2025, we were there for about an hour as they were all just integrating what had just happened for them.
it's pretty
Yeah.
incredible. Even my non-spiritual tour guide, as we went to the Karnak temple, he said, I know I need to take you somewhere. And he knew. So, you know, because it's pretty far at the back and you go through these guards and then I was put in this room with this statue and wow, just
Yeah, I think if
my
you're supposed to go there, you're guided there.
yeah, so my third eye was buzzing as well and you had a very powerful experience as well, didn't you, Myriam?
Yeah. Uh, I don't know what it was. A guide in Karnak came up to three of us from our group and told us, you have to go and see. And we were like, okay. And he said, you have to find her. It will be important for you all. And then he kind of vanished, and we thought, well, what was that? That was not just random. So we went and looked for Sekhmet, and it is a black granite statue that sits in this dark little chamber, only illuminated by the entrance. And you enter an antechamber where already a statue is without the head, but you can already feel
Oh,
the energy
yeah.
building up. And then you step through the door and you see her standing there in this semi-illuminated space. And when I entered, there were so many orbs flying around, and you may have experienced that too. They were not just flying around, they were pouring down over the statue and then floating around in the room. And for me, it was the most heart-opening experience, really loving on one hand, but also very fierce, like the goddess herself. She's destroyer and healer. And I felt like, oh my goodness, there is actually so much that I do not understand. I just let it happen. Um, and it is said that it is the only statue in all of Egypt that has never been moved from her original placement.
Mhm.
She remains exactly where the ancient priests positioned her, on the precise, I think, geomantic point they identified for her energy come through. And I felt the difference. Um, we have experienced many statues in many temples, but Sekhmet demonstrates what happens when the intention, the material, and the earth energy converge. And this is I think the statue itself holds healing properties, but it also resonates with the specific frequencies of the place itself, the locations, and this is amplifying the energy. And I think that also, yeah, we can talk about this later, maybe about the archetypal energies of the gods and themselves. So I leave it at that.
Yeah, well, that's a good. So explain. I mean, this object holds this frequency, this energy, and even the artifacts in the old museum and the new museum, and some of the artifacts in the older museum were just super powerful. But how do these artifacts hold this energy? Like, what is happening? How do you explain that?
Can you see? I'm really wonky. The internet is really wonky right now. Can you feel that too?
Oh.
What's happening? Just give me a minute.
Black
Bringing in
magic.
lots of energy, I think, thinking about sex
Yes, yeah.
everything, because my third eye is just, yeah, this is a very activating conversation. I'm feeling energy everywhere.
Okay. So the artifacts in the Grand Egyptian Museum, Peggy, you and I, we spent a day there, and I'm really glad we had this time because there's a lot. The space itself is very beautiful, I think. You have the connection to the Giza Plateau, and then all those artifacts coming together in this space, even though they have been removed from their original place. The artifacts still hold a lot of energy. And I think it is about the intention of how they were created, the purpose they were created for. Do you remember, Peggy, this disc that felt like a Pleiadian activation? The
Yeah.
alien egg we saw.
Oh, yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
describe how it was for you?
Well, what was really amazing is we were walking through this museum side by side, not really speaking a lot of the time, but we felt the energy at the exact same moment, and we had the same downloads at the same time. So we looked at this, I guess we both looked at each other and we saw this artifact. We turned to each other at the exact same time and said, alien egg. It was like we had the same download. I mean, this isn't random. And for me, experiencing these artifacts, some of them were so powerful. I mean, the explanation, I guess, is this magic or this white magic, this dark magic, because some of the artifacts and some of the temples I didn't want to stay in. I had to leave. Like particularly in the Valley of the Kings, there was one temple I couldn't go in. So explain a little bit about this dark magic that seems to exist.
Yeah, so again, we have to go back to Atlantis, where we were really powerful at creating with matter, but also with the help of our star families, we were able to create from the cosmos. And this is a very powerful technique we developed. And at some point, I think we just got overwhelmed with our own power, got, enamored, and then the hybris kicked in, and we started to tinker with things we were not supposed to, like DNA and all kinds of supernatural phenomena too, I suppose. And this is where the dark magic happened. And it is like white magic imbued and stored in the artifacts themselves. And this is something we tried to organize before the downfall so it wouldn't harm others. But we also have to understand that in the continuation of Atlantis in Egypt, we continue to do dark magic. And that is still, like everything else, a memory of the land. And if we are at the wrong place, in the wrong moment, then we can experience this.
But mostly we experience this beautiful, like, these activations, and there are activations in the hieroglyphs, as I think you explained to me. So what are the activations in the hieroglyphs?
So we thought, Amy, you have to tell me if you felt this too. So we thought the hieroglyphs have not been carved by hand and chisels, and many unfortunate slaves who had to do all of this. And I mean, all the temples, all the walls, all the columns are covered in hieroglyphs. It must have, if you imagine doing this in a masonry fashion, I mean, it would have taken centuries. So we believe that it was an alien technology that was used to create the hieroglyphs, and they still emanate this kind of energy.
Mm.
So just by touching it or leaning against a wall or leaning against a column activated, at least activated me and a couple of
Mm.
others in our group. And we thought, this is not from this world. There are activations that come from somewhere else.
Yeah, I completely agree, because those are the downloads we had at the museums, both of them. So, and I mean, what is the link between this technology and then the ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses? How do you see it from your perspective, Myriam?
Let's go back to Amy because I think Amy wanted to add
Oh,
something.
okay, sorry. Go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say, when you were talking about the hieroglyphs, I was getting a yes. So when I would meditate after our day's excursions, I would have strobing hieroglyphs going through my mind's eye. Some days they would be different. They would be, so you know how in some temples they were lines like this, and other temples they were like this.
Oh, yeah.
With them in that, I would experience them differently on different days as I was, yeah, meditating. It was just all of them swirling around, activating in some way, receiving some information. What I was receiving, I don't know, but my mind probably couldn't even comprehend what was being downloaded.
Incredible. So, did you feel specific Egyptian gods or goddesses present at certain temples? And what's the link between that and the galactic beings? Myriam, do you want to answer this one?
Yes, the temples are dedicated to deities like Hathor, Isis, many more. I believe they are the gods. They most of them have human part, mostly the body, and then the heads are depicted as kind of animals. For example, the cow or the falcon with Horus and so on, or Sekhmet, the lioness. And I think they are not what our tour guides told us. They are representing archetypal energies of the animal itself. I think it goes far more beyond that. For me, the gods in Egypt are forces of nature, and they are emanations or parts really of the earth itself or herself and the power she holds. And this is one aspect, I believe. And the other aspect is that they tell us about the visitors from the stars. And we had this on a day-to-day basis in Atlantis, where we had the connections to our galactic family out there. And in Egypt, I think that continued. And the so-called gods came to Earth, and they were ourselves, like our family. And we know that in our galaxy there exist humanoid beings, but also feline beings, represented, for example, by Sekhmet, the lioness goddess. or Bastet, the cat goddess. We have aquatic beings and reptiloid beings too. I am still thinking about the crocodile god. Who is he really? What is he really? What kind of phenotype is he representing? And insectoids too. I didn't see those so much in the Tempest, but they are there. So for sure, there were feline beings who were guiding us. For example, from Lyra, our galactic ancestors, and we received so much. All our knowledge comes from the stars. It doesn't come only from the earth itself.
Absolutely incredible. And I feel so we've spoken a lot about this sort of incredible wonder and activations and downloads and visions and heart openings. We alluded to a little bit about the dark magic, but there are some other aspects of Egypt. Sometimes you can feel that heaviness that I alluded to before, or that fear, or the distortion, or sometimes even psychic interference. I didn't experience psychic interference. I just felt this horrible heaviness in a couple of the temples. Did you experience anything like this, Amy?
Yes. So we did a camel ride, and I wasn't particularly interested in doing the camel ride, but something in me said, yes, do it. And then after we'd completed our camel ride, it was quite incredible actually to be on a camel going across the desert, seeing the pyramids. I felt like I was being strangled. So we went for lunch, and I didn't eat anything. And I could just feel this tightness around my throat, this energy. And then when we got back to our hotel, I was speaking light language to clear and release whatever was there. And I was feeling nauseous as I was clearing it. But then I remember at the end of the trip when you guys met me at my hotel and I was telling you the story, you were both like, oh, it's not God, and feeling nauseous and helping me release that. And I think, Myriam, you said it was to do with a curse or something. I don't know, maybe it was karma or a curse. I can't remember. But yeah, there's some nasty things.
The camel curse. Some of those camels do not look happy, and either do the camel handlers, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There is a connection between the animal and the human, and they remember like we do. Huh?
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, Amy, but we resolved it, I think.
A nasty camel handler or something, and the camel was getting me back. I don't know, but it was rather unpleasant. But thank you guys for helping me release that.
Yeah, look, I definitely felt a lot of heaviness in Cairo. Just the chaos, the noise, the pollution, the aggressiveness of some the drivers were incredible. It did feel like we were in a video game half the time we were driving in these 5-lane highways zooming past. But for you felt this as well, didn't you, Myriam, in Cairo?
Oh yeah, Cairo is totally chaotic. Energy is totally chaotic, and I feel it is intentional because I feel like the people, and then I've had a lot of hysteria too in Egypt, and I think it is connected to the dark magic that prevents Egypt from remembering still. And the more now that we move up the dimensional ladder, if we will, more and more of this remembrance is unlocked. And at the same time, the powers that do not want this remembrance, but it is inevitable because Earth has decided to ascend, and with her we ascend. This memory will come to the surface, and the more the memory comes up, the more the chaotic energy comes up until we resolve it and we find balance again. And I think that was very palpable in Cairo. And well, we have the history in Egypt with a lot of distorted energy, even in our younger history, right? So the more we remember, the more we do our work, the more we do what we came here to do, the better it is for the collective. And I think part of why so many people now go on those spiritual tours to Egypt is because of that, because we came here to help remember, help activate, and help heal. And we do it for ourselves, and at the same time, we do it for the collective.
So part of that purging is a lot of people do get sick. I mean, I was sick I just had the gastro stuff. But you guys both came home and were just, yeah. I mean, I know that a lot of people speak about this when you have a big upgrade. It's just shedding all the lower densities in your body. They have to come out. Sometimes it comes out as coughing or other different areas in your body. So it's you can get physically and I guess energetically sick. What was your experience, Amy?
Yeah, so I felt like I had the flu, or like the flu was encroaching for a couple of weeks when I came back, but I wasn't sick. I had a pounding head and I just needed to sleep loads. And I remember I was on a call with a friend and I said to her, "Can you just check my energy?" And she was trying to, but there was so much energy trying to integrate, so much releasing, that she was just flying off. That, like, you literally come back with your bags full, your energy field absolutely full of all these activations. And at the same time, you've got these old layers trying to break out, trying to release, other stuff integrating. And it
Mm,
just throws you into a bit of a whirl, and there's so much going on. So yeah, I was so discombobulated. I just needed to rest and sleep for an extra 6 hours a day after coming back.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
was intense. Um,
And you had a very similar experience, didn't you, Miriam?
Yeah, I had the flu or the cold for 4 weeks after Egypt. I think it is, as you said, both physical and energetic what's happening there. The food, the water, the parasites is really harsh on Western digestive systems for sure. And energetically, yes, I feel it is a purification process and an integration process afterwards, because
Mm,
I also believe that energy, Egypt forces you to confront what you have been avoiding.
mm,
And the temple activate your system in a way that then needs to be cleared. Firstly, old contracts, old patterns, karma, old identities too. And this can manifest as physical illness. Yeah, mm, that is what I experienced. I think that is
mm,
what happened
yeah.
to me.
Yeah, I was sick. I had gastro issues for probably 10 days, but it was really I had a lot of stomach pain. It was really interesting though. It was all my power center and my lower chakras. So it's about and it was all very fitting for what I was shedding and what I was purifying and going back to my ancient Egyptian powers of, and reconnecting with that. That's something I had forgotten. So yeah, and it's never random. And I know that I have clients that go through some of these processes after a healing session. And I mean, it's not quite as powerful as being in Egypt, but you can be floored for a few days afterwards. And I remember when I started channeling, I got pneumonia because my heart chakra just went, and I had to shed all the fears and all my self-doubt and everything of lower densities from my lungs. And I mean, I didn't rest enough too. That's the other issue, right? We come back and we're so busy or we're doing stuff, we just ignore some of those signs and then we just get floored. No, you just need to sleep and drink liquids. So, how did you integrate? I know I had to sleep. I drank a lot of water. But I had to just get back into my busy life as a mom. And then, of course, Christmas was not long afterwards. But how do you integrate after something like this? You know, especially without spiraling into fear or getting all. How does it work? Do you want to answer that, Amy, for you?
I just needed to take things easy. So I had a lot of fear. I did have a lot of fear and anxiety come up after Egypt, but I know not to get into the story. It was just coming up to be released. how to integrate. I just had to give myself time, be kind to myself, and not force myself to need to do too much, because I wasn't capable of doing much at all. Yeah, and it probably did. So, Miriam, I know you said you were unwell for 4 weeks, but it probably did take me a good 4 weeks or so to feel normal again. And then coming out of it, it's like, oh, okay, I am a normal person. But yeah, I just had to give myself grace and time.
But we don't want to put you off going, because the upgrades are worth it. And if you just factor in some time at the end just to rest and integrate. And I think part of the issue is, and we're going to speak about this, is that some of the tours are, there's not enough time to integrate between each temple, and sort of like they jam it in, and it's you hardly get, you're awake at 3:30 to be at temples that catch planes, et cetera, et cetera. So it has, the pace is not conducive to having that integration throughout. And I think that's something we'll speak about, because we've got some visions for the future, but we haven't spoken about the big, the big question. Were the pyramids built by aliens? Now, it's so funny, because we asked our tour guide this. We just had like a regular tour guide, and Myriam and I went one day. We just did a day trip. And she said some of them think, or maybe that was my tour. She said, well, some people believe the aliens built the pyramids. And I say, but, some people believe the Egyptians built the pyramids. And then I said, well, what if the Egyptians were aliens? And that explains it a bit better, because you can't even imagine. And we were on this tour, and I remember this guy. He was a builder from the UK. Do you remember? They were this handsome couple. They were just all ready for their beautiful shot at the pyramids. And he was staring at the stonework. And his hand was gliding over as we were walking through into the beginning of Giza. And the precision of these stone, it's laser cut. It's so particular. And you just said to me, he remembers, he helped build this thousands of years ago. But we wanted to tell him, though, I think you had a past life and you actually helped build this, but it was just probably a bit too outside of his comfort zone to have a conversation like that. Okay, so what do you think? How were they built?
Do you want a short answer on the
Well, I think I've already answered it, but go.
The short answer is by priests initiated into the mysteries of sound, frequency, levitation. Technologies we are slowly remembering and rediscovering. As I told you the story in the Aswan Quarry. And the marks in the granite suggest methods that worked with the stone's crystalline structure, with the torus field of its subatomic structure, and the precision and the smoothness of the cuts, as you said, and the sheer scale of it. I mean, the blocks of limestone up to a couple of, I don't know, 70 tons or so. It is just not, we still couldn't do it just by, human labor. It is just not done. The physics cannot explain this. So copper tools and dollarite pounders do not suffice as explanations. So some researchers propose sound frequency, and I think it was both frequency and tools we cannot identify yet. Maybe in the Egyptian Museum, some of them are exhibited. And they are techniques we have completely forgotten, and especially about how consciousness interacts with matter. And through geomancy, we can find, I think, a path towards that, but it needs much more research and much more information that comes from somewhere else but our human mind and the explanations of traditional research.
So what were they for then? If they've built them, what were they for?
I think they were initiation sites, they were healing sites, and they were frequency technology for balancing the Earth grid. I told you when I touched the sarcophagus in the king's chamber, it was designed to project consciousness outward, upward, for me to the North Star. And the geometry of the space creates specific effects on human awareness when activated, especially by tone or by frequency, and for sure by intention, by those who know how to use it. Amy, you described how you were activated in the King's Chamber. And we went to the Queen's Chamber and we Om chanted. It was the most extraordinary experience I had because the chamber itself is designated as this resonance chamber. And now imagine the whole structure as a resonance structure that balances the grid around it and helps with fertility, helps with mitigating weather issues, all of that. And again, we are just at the beginning of understanding what they might be.
Yes, I think we're going to have to do a part two because there is so much more to explain and explore in these topics. I think we can really start looking at the galactic connections and really dive into that. I think our audience would be very interested to hear a bit more about it. And then also speak a bit more about how to practically actually plan a trip and how to go there and what do we want, what's the must do. So I don't know if you guys are interested in coming back, but I think it's probably important to have another conversation because we could probably keep going for another hour, but I'm mindful of the time and Amy has to leave shortly. So because there's so many incredible codes and there's other things to explore. I think we might just leave this with the audience to ponder and do their own research and perhaps comment down below. What are your questions? What else do you want to talk about? Because we could talk about it we could have probably a 3-part series to discuss some of these things. And I think we would really like to talk about this. How do you prepare? And if you're spiritual, it feels like a must do as part of your journey. And Myriam is actually planning to host a trip in 2027, I think. So that might be something we could speak about in the next discussion. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of activations or your experiences in some of these sacred sites and to leave the audience to ponder?
My closing ceremony in the Great Pyramid was incredible. We were taking it in turns in the sarcophagus, toning in there as we were meditating and speaking our light language. And we felt all these beings present with us as we were doing this closing ceremony. And I could feel it in my energy field and my heart, like my heart had expanded. And I was walking around with it out here and I could just feel it was like angels and beings. And then I remember as we were exiting and people had taken photos, there were all these like blue orbs that, like, when you zoom in, they look, I think I showed you guys some of them. They looked very interesting. Yeah, so that for me was really powerful, the closing ceremony, and just how it really activated and expanded the heart space. That was magnificent. And we also did the toning in the Queen's Chamber. And I remember the lady next to me saying she turned to me and she saw me as this feline bipedal ET creature, which I thought was fun.
That's incredible. Myriam, did you want to share anything else?
Amy, you talked about the Sphinx earlier, and you were lucky enough to have a visit between the Sphinx paws. I visited the Sphinx as well, and I remember standing there. I thought, wow, the Sphinx is where our souls arrive before incarnation here. And I think the Sphinx is So I saw all of those souls walking between the paws of the Sphinx standing in front of her. And the Sphinx gives each soul their specific mission or assignment here for Earth. And then the souls incarnate into their little bodies in their mother's wombs. That is how I saw it. And I think it is important to remember our assignment, why we came here, because it is about preparing ourselves for the times ahead. And from a galactic astrology view, 2026 will be quite turbulent. We are already feeling the ripples from the events reaching us from the future in the now. It is a year of metamorphosis, and I think using the Egyptian template and how the ancients worked with those cosmic forces for our day-to-day life is something that is really needed to be remembered. And so Egypt for me is always just a preparation, and the real work begins when we return from Egypt.
What a beautiful way to summarize the experience. And I too felt that incredible activation of the Sphinx. You actually activated me, and it was just this understanding that I'm ready to step into universal service of creation. This is what we're here for, and that's what I try to do as my sole purpose in every morning, is how can I be in service of divine creation? How can I help the collective? What can I do? Yeah. And it was felt quite initiated in the deep remembering, just in presence with you, Myriam, and this incredible Sphinx. It was amazing. So I hope you have enjoyed our conversation and you have understood some of these incredible experiences we had. And please comment below, and any questions you have, just fire away. Yeah, I think we're going to have to do some kind of Egyptian activation joint webinar of some description for our audience members, so they can receive some of these codes that we got initiated in. I think it would be a wonderful thing. We'll have to put our minds together before part 2 and come up with an offering for our audience. Thank you again for your time and for your wonderful, thoughtful answers and for your beautiful heart space and presence. And I look forward to having you on again to discuss the rest of our topics.
Thank you, Peggy, for facilitating this interview and for creating this space for all of us.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. See you again soon.